Let's say we want to solve the equation x squared minus 6x is equal to 0. Like always, pause this video and see if you could solve this on your own before we solve it together. Okay, so first I will do what you might have been tempted to do. Maybe you say, well, let me add 6x to both sides of this equation. So if I add 6x to both sides, I get on the left-hand side, I just get an x squared. And on the right-hand side, I get 6x. And then you might be tempted to say, all right, well, maybe I could divide both sides by x, and you could. So if I divide both sides by x, we have to be careful though. When you're dividing both sides by x, you have to assume that x cannot be equal to 0. So x cannot be equal to 0. And in order to do this, because if you divided by an x that could be or that is 0, then this would be undefined. But if x is not equal to 0, you could keep moving. X squared divided by x would be x. 6x divided by x would be 6. And you would get x equals 6. And this would not be incorrect. If you would substitute x equals 6 back into the original equation, you would get 6 squared minus 6 times 6 is equal to 0. 36 minus 36 is indeed equal to 0. But the main question is, did we get all of the solutions? With linear equations, you're used to having one solution. It turns out with quadratics, second-degree equations like this, you actually can have more than one solution. Now, what could be another solution? Well, we had to assume here that x could not be equal to 0. But what if x was 0? Well, just trying that out, we get 0 squared minus 6 times 0 equals 0. And this is true. 6 times 0 is 0. And that is also true. So x equaling 0 is also a solution. But how could we have found that? Well, the correct way when you're dealing with quadratics is not to try to separate the x's and put some of the x's on one side or the other and manipulate it that way. It's typically to just try to factor the quadratic expression. So if we take this original expression, x squared minus 6x, we can factor out an x. So we could say this is the same thing as x times x minus 6 is equal to 0. Verify this. If you were to distribute this, x times x is x squared, x times negative 6 is negative 6x. Now, why is this useful? Well, now we can see that I have the product of two things. I have the product of x and I have the product of x minus 6. If I multiply two numbers and I get 0, that means that either of them equaling 0 would make the equation true. So I could say either x could be equal to 0 or x minus 6 is equal to 0. And x equals 0 is indeed a solution, and x minus 6 equaling 0, that would get us to x equals 6. And we can actually plot the graph of y equals x squared minus 6x here to see those two solutions, those two places where it equals 0. So this is the graph of y is equal to x squared minus 6x. And you can see the two places it equals 0 are at x equals 6 and x equals 0. And hopefully this gives you an appreciation for why you can have two solutions here, because it curves, it's a parabola, and it can intersect the x-axis twice.